things on this side that we'll be talking about. We have our coolant reservoir, which is securely mounted. It's not cracked, broken, or leaking, and our fluid is above the fill line, safe operating range. Next thing we have is our alternator. Our alternator is a BOD, B-O-D-S, which means belt driven, operates properly, not damaged, and securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts or bolts. Twist with the alternator, EBB. It has no exposed, broken, or burnt wires, and all my wires are securely fastened. This is my alternator belt. It has no more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch deflection from the center of the belt. It is not damaged or cracked, and it has no loose fibers. It's not excessively worn. After we say that, right there we have our water pump. It's the front of the engine, that big round thing. The water pump is also BODS, B-O-D-S. B stands for belt driven, O stands for operates properly, D stands for damaged, it is not damaged, and S is securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts or bolts. Twist with the water pump is, it has no leaks. After that, we have our windshield fluid. It's above the fill line. Then we are done with this side, and then we come over to the other side. Once we get to this side, once again, start high and then go low. So in the very beginning, I have all of my engine hoses. We call this the ABCs. I have no A, abrasive damage from rubbing. B, I have no bulges. C's, no cuts or cracks. They are all securely connected, and I have no leaks coming from my hoses, my clamps. This is a fitting or couplings. The brake system has couplings. So these are clamps, these are fittings, and these are couplings. All right, so once we're done with those, we're gonna move down. This is my oil. My oil is in safe operating range. I checked it this morning. This is your governor. These are all these little air lines here going to that black tube. You follow that black tube, it takes you to the back and it brings you to your air compressor. It is also red like your engine, but you can see the definition of how it looks different. My air compressor is in there. Now that is GODS. Everything on this side is GODS, which stands for gear driven. The rest is all the same. Operates properly, not damaged, securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts and bolts. The twist with the air compressor is it has no air or fluid leaks, because we have to drain our air compressors to get the water out. If it's leaking water, it's leaking air. So you would say it has no air or fluid leaks. Next thing we have is our power steering fluid. If you look at the bottom, there's a hose there. Follow that hose, it takes you straight to your power steering unit. It looks like a starter. It's silver. Anyways, there I have my power steering pump. It is also GODS. Gear driven, operates properly, not damaged, securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts or bolts. The twist with the power steering pump is it is not leaking. After that, we might as well go ahead and talk about our reservoir. Here's my power steering reservoir. It's in safe operating range above the fill line, and it's securely mounted and not damaged or leaking. All my hoses are securely connected. I have no abrasive damage, no bulges, no cuts, no cracks, no leaks coming from my hoses, clamps, or fittings. Here I have my steering linkage. It's not bent or damaged, or it doesn't have no excessive wear for the socket. Socket's not damaged. And it is securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts, bolts, or cotter keys. This is my steering box. It is securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts, bolts, or cotter keys, and it's not cracked or leaking. After that, you have your suspension. Now, the very front of your suspension that holds up your leaf springs, you have it there and you have it in the back. Those are your mounts and hangers. My mounts and hangers are securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts or bolts. I have no loose or missing or damaged bushings. I have no damaged axle spring mounting parts. After that, you're going to talk about your leaf springs. They're not shifted, cracked, broken, loose, or missing. And they are secured down here by my U-bolt, which is not cracked or broken, and I have no loose or missing nuts. Now after that, or bolts, nuts or bolts, doesn't matter. After that, you have your shock absorber, which is the last part of your suspension. It is securely mounted and not leaking. After your shock absorber, you have your brake lines and hoses, so it's now bringing you this way. My brake lines and hoses are securely connected. No abrasive damage from rubbing, no bulges, no cuts, no cracks, and I have no leaks coming from my lines, hoses, or my couplings, and they go right to your brake chamber. My brake chamber is securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts or bolts, and no loose or missing clamps. This is a clamp at the very top. It holds it together. It's not dented or leaking. This is your slack adjuster, and that is your push rod. My slack adjuster is securely mounted with no loose or missing, with no loose or missing nuts or bolts, and the push rod is not bent or damaged. Now we're going into the tire. We have dust covers here that keep all the dirt and debris out of our brake system. So now we're talking about our brake system. My drums and rotors are securely mounted with no loose or missing nuts or bolts, and there are no holes. They are not damaged or excessively worn, and there are no signs of oil or grease. My brake lining is not worn dangerously thin, and there are no signs of oil or grease. Now we're at the tire. My tread shows that it's evenly worn. I have no damage to my tread or my sidewalls, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or cracks, and my tread depth is above the minimum 4/32, which we are above that of tread depth. After that, it is properly inflated. I would check with the tire gauge to ensure that, and it is. My rims and flange is not bent or damaged or cracked. I have no illegal welds, and all my lug nuts, you would check them all as you go around, are nice and tight and secure. None of them are loose. Then I have my axle seal. The oil and grease is filled up to the safe range, and it is not leaking from inside or out. My valve stem cap is here. My valve stem and cap is secure, and it's not missing or broken. Once we're done with this whole front area, we just move down the bus. My mud flap is secure. I would open my battery box. This is my battery box. Yeah, the door opens smoothly, closes securely. Hinges are secure, and the seals are intact. We're on the side of the bus. Let's go ahead and knock them all out. All of my lights and lenses, all on the side of my bus, BMW, not broken, not missing. They are all working properly, and they are all proper color for their location. Amber in the front and side, and red in the rear. My reflective tape is securely affixed down my bus and around my door. As we move on down further, stop paddle is secure, not damaged. All my wires are securely connected. I have no exposed, broken, or burnt wires. And the stop paddle works correctly. We know that from when we did our light test. Coming down here, underneath my bus, I have my exhaust system. I have my frame, and I also have my drive shaft. We will talk about those. So my drive shaft is securely mounted, not damaged or twisted. And the universal joints are free of foreign objects. You see those knuckles are together? Those are your universal joints. My exhaust system is tightly clamped. It is securely mounted. It's not damaged. It has no signs of rust or carbon soot or any type of leaks. After that, my frame, I have no longitudinal cracks down my frame or cross members. All my cross members are securely welded, and I have no holes in my box. This is my side door. Opens smoothly, closes securely. Hinges are secure, seals are intact, and it's clearly labeled. Opens freely from the outside. The rear. So in this rear here, you would mention up everything that you mentioned up in the front. I would check my rear the same way I did the ones in the front. I would check my suspension. So you would start off with my mounts and hangers, my leaf springs, my U-bolt, and my shock absorber the same way I did in the front. I would then check my brake lines and hoses, my brake chamber, my slack adjuster and push rod the same way I did it in the front. My brake drums and rotors and my brake lining the same way I did in the front. I would check my tires. We have duals in the rear. This is the difference. I would make sure that they're evenly spaced and not touching or rubbing. And I would check that my tires, my rim, my valve stem and cap, and all my lug bolts and everything, my axle seal, I would check that the same way I did in the front. My minimum tread depth is 2/32 in the rear, and I am above that, so it is safe. Then we would come on here. My mud flap is secure. All right, bringing it to the back. I can come down here and I can see that my airbags are securely mounted and they are not damaged, no abrasive bulges, no cuts, no cracks. And if there's anything else to say, you would look in that paper and it should tell you. All right, so now that we got our airbags out the way, my lights, my rear lights, once again, it's BMW. All of my rear lights are not broken or missing. My lights are lenses. They're not broken or missing. They're a proper color for their location. They're working properly. And let's see, after that, we have our door. We would clearly labeled. Opens smoothly. Safety lock works. Closes securely. Hinges are secure, seals are intact, can be operated from the outside. And my tape, reflective tape, is secured to the bus. All of my glass is not excessively dirty around the side, front, or back. It is not chipped, cracked, or broken. And I have no obstructions, nothing obstructing my view. All right, I believe we covered everything back here. Coming around to this side, this is why we got the key. This is my fuel tank. The cap is secure and not leaking, and my fuel tank is not leaking from the tank or any fuel lines. I have no signs of leaking underneath my bus. All right, I have here a storage compartment. It opens smoothly, closes securely, hinges are secure, and the seals are intact. All right, I would check this side of the bus the same way I did the other side. Would you like for me to demonstrate is what I would want you to ask the tester. What that does is sort of puts them on the spot. If you're missing a lot of stuff, they're gonna say yeah. If you're not, they wanna hurry up and be done with this, they're gonna say no. If they say no, chances are you're passing. If they say yes, demonstrate, then you would go over this whole side. And then I would walk back to the front and I would ask, would you like for me to demonstrate my engine compartment again? And if she says yes, that's probably where you missed a lot of stuff. I would go over that as well. Once I go over all of that, would you like for me to demonstrate the front of my bus? I mean, you were basically trying to wind it down.